Hey people, and welcome to my channel. I'm Mary, and today I'm going to share a paranormal experience I had with my grandma. So on my channel, I know I share a lot about mental health and coming off of antidepressants, but I've never really shared the main reason that I tend to end up on antidepressants, and that is because I have a lot of paranormal experiences. Now, it's not always because I have paranormal experiences. I'm still an anxious ass bitch. I always have been, I always will be. It's just the paranormal experiences tend to push me to a point that I can't pull my brain back from sometimes. And this story was one that affected me quite a bit as a kid. And I have a lot of paranormal experiences. I'm planning on sharing a lot more of these stories. So if you're interested in that, please like and subscribe. So this story happened when I was 7 years old, and I grew up in a house that looks like this. I'll put a picture of it up here. It was a double wide trailer. It was on a big piece of land. My parents bought the house brand new. And the land we inherited from my dad's side of the family. And I had a lot of crazy experiences in this house. Yeah, they were crazy. But this is the one that kind of made me scared of the experiences that I have. And they've only gotten more intense as I've gotten older. And I'm more open about them now with my family and my friends and people that I'm close to. But this is like, being open about it publicly is not something that I usually choose to do, just because going through, like, there's so much, how do I say this? There's so much like hype on social media and in the world right now of like being psychic and a medium and having paranormal experiences and how cool that is. But I think a lot of times people don't understand how absolutely terrifying they can be, especially when you're taught that it's not safe to have those experiences or talk about them. So I think it's important to be open about the experiences that I have had and do have even now, just so that people know that if they're experiencing this kind of stuff and they feel like they're crazy, they're not. There have been many times that I have thought that I was absolutely insane because of some of the shit that I have experienced. And I just think it's important to have a space where people are able to have those experiences and not feel judged for them. So this happened when I was 7 years old. And I remember the day my grandma passed, I woke up, and this is something that happens quite frequently for me, but I have a tendency to know when people are gonna pass. It's also happened with animals, but it always affects me the most when it's people that I know, because there's nothing I can do to change what's gonna happen most of the time. And there have been times where I've held on to a lot of guilt because I felt like I could have changed something. And this day, I was 7 years old, and at this point, I don't really know what these experiences are. Like, to me, it's just normal. But I woke up and I had this knowing of something was gonna happen, and I felt anxious, and I couldn't really place what it was, but I knew something was gonna happen that day. And I remember my mom took my sister and I to the gym with her. My sister was 2 at the time, I was 7, like I said. And we had just gotten back from the gym. We were standing in the kitchen, and I remember knowing that the phone was gonna ring and my aunt was gonna be on the other end of the phone call. So a few minutes later, the phone rings and my mom answers the phone, and she immediately starts crying. And I find out that my aunt called to tell her that my grandma had passed in surgery. And so I start crying, I'm all upset, and that's just kind of how that day went. And then we started the process of like her funeral and her wake. And I do remember that her wake was the first experience I ever had being around a body. I had had other relatives and stuff pass before this, but I was never allowed to go to their funeral, and my parents let me come to my grandma's funeral. And I remember just how emotional that experience was for me. But I also remember being the weird little child that I was going around and I was telling all the people at the funeral that I could feel that my grandma was there, and I was talking about how she loved them, and like I was I don't know. I mean, to me it was just like, well, she's here, like why can't you feel this? And I didn't know that that wasn't a normal thing. So these people are looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm just out here just being me. And I remember after her funeral, I started having experiences with her of I would hear her say my name, or I would see her walk by out of the corner of my eye. And my dad started dealing with her estate at this point, and I ended up inheriting her bedroom furniture, and they were these beautiful dark wood antique pieces, and it was a dresser and a nightstand. And I remember when they came, I felt like I didn't really feel good about them. I didn't really like them, but I was just excited because I was getting new furniture. And once I got that furniture, things with my grandma started to definitely get more intense. So I was having more frequent, like waking up in the middle of the night, hearing her. I would see her in my room sometimes. And, you know, I'm telling my parents about this as this is happening, and they're just kind of like, what's wrong with you? Like something's not right. So they think that I'm dealing with grief, and I mean, I lost my grandma. So they send me to grief camp, and I come back from grief camp, and I'm still having these experiences. And I remember the most intense, there were two really intense experiences. The first one was, I was sleeping and I heard my grandma say my name, and I look over and I see my grandma in my room grabbing the stuff that's on my dresser and putting it on the floor. And I'm like, I'm scared shitless. Like I can't say anything. I don't know what to do. I'm panicking. And so I'm frozen, and my grandma just keeps saying, you can't have this. You have to get rid of this furniture. And she just keeps saying that and moving my stuff. So eventually I just bolt out of my room and I go screaming into my parents' room. And, you know, they come back into my room and like, they're thinking like, oh, like she's just having like nightmares, blah, blah, blah. And they see the stuff on the floor, and they're like, I mean, the automatic thought of any logical person is, oh, like she's a kid, she has an imagination, she put that stuff on the floor, it's fine, we'll put it back, we go to bed. I did not put that stuff on the floor, but it was what it was. And I kept having like experiences like that where my grandma would like move stuff on my dresser, or like I'd wake up and she would be in my room and say, you can't have this furniture. And you know, it just kept getting more and more weird. And on the nightstand, which was the second experience that really stands out, it was a pretty big nightstand, and I had a hamster cage on it. And every night my mom would come in and she would kiss me goodnight. I would kiss my hamster goodnight. So I would pull my hamster out of the cage, kiss my hamster goodnight, put my hamster back in the cage. And we would always double check that the doors to the hamster cage were locked, and we had those little like twist ties that you get in a garbage bag box, that we would double check were twisted so that the hamster couldn't like open the door in any way. And then I'd say my prayers and go to sleep. So just like every other night, I did this with my mom. I say my prayers, I go to sleep. Well, a few hours later, I hear my grandma say my name. I immediately wake up because this is becoming a regular thing. And I feel this thing scurry across my chest. And so I freak out. I throw the covers off. I see my hamster out of the cage. I look at the hamster cage and the doors on the cage are still shut. The twist ties are still twisted on. There is no opening for the hamster to get out of. So I run to my parents' room. I'm freaking out. I tell them what happened. They help me wrangle the hamster. And my dad is like, well, there has to be some kind of explanation. Like there had to be some kind of like crevice that it got out of, or maybe it was able to lift it a little bit to get out. And like, we're checking the cage. That's not the case. My dad is still convinced that that's the case. So my parents end up sending me to a counselor because they're thinking like, oh, like she's not handling this. They're trying to find ways to help me. But what happens with the counselor is she basically said that I wanted attention and that I was just grieving, which of course those two things were true. I was a 7-year-old child, but the experiences that I was having were very real. However, hearing that from adults that I trusted made me feel like there was something wrong with me and that these experiences that I was having weren't real and that I couldn't talk about them with adults. So then I decide, well, I'll go to school and I'll tell my friends at school. And I tell my friends at school and I very quickly find out that other kids aren't really having these experiences and they start making fun of me. So I really just locked it down at that point and I'm like, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm just going to deal with these experiences and nobody needs to know. And the only person that I ever really consistently opened up about it with was my best friend, Faith, who is also my roommate. We've been best friends for 31 years. And she's the person that I always confided in these experiences with. And even now, she still reminds me of experiences that I either forgot about or pushed down that I talked to her about. So I'm hoping to eventually get her on the channel so she can talk about the things that she's experienced with me, because some of them have been pretty crazy. And eventually we ended up getting rid of the furniture. Somehow I convinced my parents to get rid of it because I was still having those experiences. I don't remember how I did, but we finally got rid of it. And like it went, I don't remember how long I had the furniture, but I do know like I still was having those experiences every once in a while just growing up throughout living in that house. Not so much her taking stuff off my furniture, but hearing her say my name and like seeing her come out of the corner of my eye or like feeling her in the room. I definitely still continued to have those experiences. But at that point, I stopped associating my grandma and those experiences as a good thing. And so it was just any time that she would show up, I was scared. And I just started seeing, it kind of changed the way I viewed her because I started feeling angry at her because I didn't understand what was happening with me. So they were just, I don't know, there's a lot more stories where that came from, and I'll be posting more of them. But that was my experience with my paranormal experience with my grandma. And if you're into those things, like and subscribe because there will be more on the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.